What's up, guys? Okay, kind of got everything set up previously, so we'll just make this happen and then see how it goes. Alright, first up we got loadout. Loadout! Okay, so loadout, I did a little bit of research. You're working on a, obviously you commented on the name of the gun, but a SIG 552. So I went online and grabbed some pictures of a SIG 552 just to see. It looks like you're baking it down already. I could be wrong. No, maybe that's the high. Might be the high poly. We'll see. Anyway, let's just start picking at it a little bit. We'll be pretty quick about it, but let's just see what we can tag. Get a good color here. So how this will usually format, I'm going to try and do it like this, where essentially I'll frame up everyone's work. I've got Justin J's portfolio on another screen. Since it's a PDF, we'll just look through the PDF. We can actually open the PDF in Photoshop. Anyway, so we're just going to go through your guys' stuff, and then I'll call it good for tonight. So we've got a SIG 552. Initially, I would say that there's some discrepancies, I think, where you're starting to take your own design liberties, I'm guessing. For people that want to make guns for the industry, they're going to be pretty hardcore about making sure that the guns are very, very accurate, especially if the gun companies are involved and want to take their gun to the next level as far as games, but still be accurate, because accuracy is important for them. So make sure that you're following things like let's see there, your scope here. Oh, I'm gonna a better brush than this. There we go. Make sure you're angling this like it's angled here. The shape here. Make sure you're following that. How this barrel ends might not be as important. As long as that's a barrel type that you can actually equip to a gun. Your rail on the side here is quite short. What else we got here? The rail on the top on the model that I had found extends all the way to here. So it's quite a long rail. And then there's also a sight on the top of the rail. Let's see what else we got here. Your attention to detail is pretty good on most of the parts. Shape-wise, there's getting some weird stuff where, like, there's a cut in here that isn't apparent here. This piece here, you have to think about, like, the guy holding the gun pulls that back, right? How's that feel on his finger? And the way you have it right now is rounded. Can be kind of difficult to use in real life. Just make sure that matches a bit more. From what I can tell, the under barrel here has been added by you. These shapes right here right now feel pretty geometric. This shape is pretty good. I would suggest see how it's rounding here, making sure that you get that same kind of rounding in yours. Right now it's quite square. The trigger mechanism, make sure that the back part here is good, and it looks like angle wise this is going this way while yours is straight down. You might want to think about angling it a bit more this direction. What else we got here? This is a good detail. Clip wise, you've got there's a little bit of a detail here. Right, you can see right there. I think that's where the clip ends or becomes wider, as it doesn't have to be inserted into the gun itself. Just make sure that matches up. This bevel pattern doesn't currently. Your bevel pattern does not match the same. I think yours is going in while theirs is going out. Could be wrong. I think if I were to take this piece here from the side view, I think I'll do this. I think it looks like it's doing this. And this piece here is actually going up like that. And that is the same height as this from the looks of it. Maybe just a little bit lower. So if you were to look at it from a side view, this is the wrong angle, of course. Top view, I guess. Top view would be like that. What else we got here? Your detail right here, right now, is hollow in the core when it looks like it needs to be solid. Pay attention to that, and also double check your thickness and the radius that this ring meeting the rest of the body is right now quite narrow. Maybe shrinking the ring a bit, and then just capping it will help get it closer to this look. Make sure that there's a weird, so this goes down like this, and then it rounds. Make sure that yours rounds similar. I can't tell from this angle, so just make sure. This piece right now as well does not look like it's as straight, rounded, and then straight again, and then like a 45-degree angle. Make sure that this line is straight, curved down. And then don't forget the 45. And yeah, that's it's like, how do I control this zoom? That's you, Loadout. If you have any questions, you can drop them in the chat. Okay, now we got head trip. This scene's actually pretty interesting. It reminds me a lot of man, what was that game? That mobile game where you're gardening with zombies. Can't remember it for some reason. Anywho, very similar in design, like colors and style and stuff. There's a lot going on in this scene. This angle is pretty it's pretty, like, the whole scene is pretty busy. The things that I like are things like this, with the roots coming out of the ground, coming out of the wood flooring. I would probably, so like if this happened, right, this piece of wood would come up, it would bend, so like this whole slat of wood would probably be curling back. Maybe the piece behind it would have fractured and be a little bit of bits of wood around. There's so many interesting things happening in here right now. I think it's becoming really, really busy. What could really benefit your scene is taking portions of your wall, like this piece. So we'll go pretty broad stroke, and we can look at it as you progress on the scene. Taking portions of the ceiling like that, maybe, or portions of the wall, and then portions of the ceiling. Maybe this is all broken up. Maybe it does something more interesting than that. Maybe it comes down here and then goes back up. And then this is solid. This is solid. That way you have areas for your eyes to rest on. Because right now there's just like infinite busyness, and the grass stylistically currently is not following the same look as the rest of the scene. So for broad strokes, I would say look at your composition and try and figure out where details are kind of going a bit crazy. Right now it's kind of everywhere. Like there's some really cool stuff happening on this table. This is really cool. The angle of this drip, make sure it's straight down. These shapes in the back, be careful with like adding them, because I think in the end you're going to end up, the focus is in this house. The focus is this guy and what he is doing with that remote, which is pumping juice out of butterflies. I don't know. The other angle is this unused angle is Yeah, definitely I don't think this angle is needed unless you want to put like the camera on this corner here and then look down into this scene. So that's like its own separate scene. And in that case, I would definitely push the depth of field and make everything around this scene kind of blurry. So that way your focus is on the table. This angle is interesting. But again, like I feel like there's just a lot going on. If you wall this off, maybe put a few slats of wood this way. You could put, I think those are mushrooms in the background. You could put one over here. Compositionally, that would work pretty well, I think. Make sure to wall up some more of this. And then check if your character, like if you really want it to look good, make sure that you're double checking your anatomy. I'm terrible at characters, so we'll leave it at that. Yeah, just make sure to, as you're, like I wouldn't pass block out until it feels like the scene's not busy, because this is a lot of detail for a block out. A lot of detail. But yeah, I would say tackle that stuff first, tackle your composition, and try and bring the detail ratio of 30% high detail and 70% areas for the eye to rest. So like making this wall solid is going to give your eyes areas to rest. Making this solid up here is going to make it darker because of the bounce light. Direct light and bounce light. Bounce light's the only thing that's going to happen up there, which will highlight these slats, which is pretty cool. And then it'll slowly like fade into darkness up there. And then approaching a different way to do your grass, maybe fitting more of the style of everything else. Okay, let's get to Mr. Uranium. I'm not even going to try and say your name. It's awesome though, it looks cool. So this material looks pretty cool. It's pretty uniform. There's not a lot of details to get kind of crazy about. I would say that right now the cracks here are kind of, they're common enough and the shapes are common enough that it's starting to feel procedural. So be careful with those. This material, it actually feels like it's a little bit underwater, and I think it's because these feel like this dirt is like the soil that you see at the bottom of a lake that's kind of rested on the props or things that have sunk to the bottom. So I'd maybe concentrate a bit more on separating those out. Concentrating on your roughness, and I would really like to see this without any textures on it, and then see what it looks like with just the normal map and the displacement, and then concentrating on your roughness. No albedo yet, because albedo kind of comes into place quite naturally once you have your roughness and your normal and height figured out. Everything else just kind of works. So concentrate on getting these shapes and this type of breakup that you have going on. Get that looking good in your normal height and roughness, and then let's look at your diffuse. This one is quite noisy. I think that so these are pretty generated looking currently, and these details, it looks like you're using like the gradient color node, and at the highest point you're highlighting everything with white. I would be careful to not go too white, as like your roughness and the reflectivity of everything in the environment will do that for you. So try not to do that in your albedo. And then be careful with these. I would suggest if you're building a scene to leave those to decals or something that you can float on top of your surface to place, and keeping this pretty basic. Like this is a good example of kind of the approach you should take this one. This asset looks really good. I think some more play on maybe like some aging, not too much, but maybe like a dust pass something happening up here. Getting that ambient occlusion to help you get some dirtiness in here. And then right now it looks like your edge here is quite harsh. So be careful with like how hard edge that is. Might need to take another pass at the high poly and just kind of bevel the transition between these two. Or if you're using Moto, to use the round edge shader and just get a bake with that nice bevel between the surfaces. This material looks pretty cool. I would double check your albedos on the yellow to make sure they're not too yellow. Other than that, I mean, I think, you know how when bicycles or vehicles or whatever get near these, you get rubber marks that happen on here. That'd be pretty interesting to see between them. Occasionally, not too often. And then maybe like at least a top layer of dirt, or a darkening or lightening, depending on what looks best. Like a sun bleaching, or like if it's sun bleaching and this is paint, then you'll expect a desaturated look. A little bit more desaturated, a little bit lighter would be sun bleaching. And then like dirtiness or dustiness will be more of a diffused roughness and the color starting to fade. I think these details right here are pretty cool. I like those. Other than that, I would make sure that these bolts aren't black. It's very strange for them to be black. And usually with something that's being bolted in the ground like this, they're going to be really flush, really low inset almost into the cap. And then make sure to bevel these just a little bit more so that it's not so, it doesn't look so 3D. Right now it looks geometric. This guy, so this guy looks really cool. I'm worried that it might be a little low poly in these rounded parts, but that might, the thing with showing props like this is it might be out of context for me to critique this one, mainly because I don't know how big it will be in the scene and like where it's at as far as the player sees it, or in your screenshots for your composition. It'll be okay if it's like that big on your screen or like that. But if you start getting like, if you can get up to it like this in a screenshot, then you'll want to definitely round these out more, and that won't hurt you geometry wise, especially since you're paying for the geometry so much in this rounding. You might be able to actually lower that a bit, who knows. But this looks pretty cool. I really like the and maybe would push a little bit more of the interaction between where it's meeting the body with this wire mesh. And the plastic and your roughness of these details is really nice, so that's cool. Alright, on to Tony. Tony, this scene's crazy. If I don't even recognize, is that Gizmo? Is that, are you in Unity? What is this? So the reason I grabbed this picture, so that you give me a couple of screenshots and an animated GIF, but I wanted to look at this picture and show you like if you take, let's see here, if you take this and you blur it, actually I need to do it with it selected. So if you blur it and you just look at it like that, all you're seeing is this area and this. Compositionally, that's pretty difficult to discern what's happening, right? There's a lot of details and stuff happening here, but it's really difficult to understand what you're looking at. What is cool in this picture is this shadow here, and then this looks awesome. This is really cool too. There's this face, and I wish that I was seeing it closer, you know? You're seeing it a bit closer here, and this shot is a bit more compelling because now you can see stuff happening. This rock back here, color-wise, is not really matching the other rocks in the background, which is really strange. You have the same problem with these rocks to the sand. Try making those match just a little bit closer. Let me see if I can. Let's see if I can simulate that. Even if they were like that light, it's already much better by comparison. Let me see if I can. Just going through these filters to see what I can do. Okay. We'll put a mask on top of this, and we'll just paint this all black, and we'll come in, give you some highlights, because this gets really interesting when you can start getting away from your rocks being so uniformly dark. And this is probably the best example, is this one. So like, see how like adding a little bit of a highlight or a directional gradient on your rocks will add so much more, as well as bring them back into this color palette. Like, I almost wonder if you could colorize this, just show you a bit more. Yes. And then we'll lighten this a bit as well. Yeah, see how much more this rock here is integrating into the rest of the scene. It really brings it into this look, which is good. You'll need that. That, and then it brings this rock in, kind of telling you that these are all the same rock. See, right now it's really strange that these two are two different colors. Now this shot's super cool. Compositionally, it's really, it looks to be really strong. Let's do the blur test on this. So while you lose sight of what's happening here, you do get this focus and this focus, as well as them being in a contrast to each other, like a complementary colors. And you get this dark mass here, which is cool because it helps, it cuts the scene in half, which is a compositional aid to what your scene is doing. Now you're just wondering, like, okay, what's going on here? What's this? And I guess without blurring it, you could see a little bit more. So without blurring it, looking at these guys, I almost think you should add some that are closer, that are just part of like the composition. They don't have to necessarily be attached to anything. Like, kind of like this one, a little bit closer. Maybe one that's, no, that's a, never mind. I'm trying to think of like a good way to explain this. So you can have some of these receiving the highlight. A lot of these are going to be in the dark. So it's just to add that depth, to try and separate the scene out even more. And then if you get these rocks, matching into the rest of the scene, you're all of a sudden going to have like a scene that's much more unified, and then these shapes can really start to pop out. This stuff's really cool. I think that stuff's looking awesome. So yeah, work on those things and see if I think right now you're at a state where you don't really need to add anything more. You need to start unifying everything, and then maybe add these guys, and that's about it. Everything else is about unifying to help strengthen the composition. That's looking, it's cool tuning. All right, Justin J. Where we at here? Let's do this. So start at the very top. I won't really draw on this. I'm just gonna be like looking at it. So this fireplace piece is pretty cool. I would suggest not making it part of your header. I would just say Justin. Is it Justin Jaeger? Make your name nice and big, and just a solid like dark box with like white text or something. That way your name is not taking away from the image, and the image is not taking away from them knowing that this is your portfolio. That, and it allows you to, let me see if you have it in here. Oh, you have it in here once, but see, you could totally put that fireplace down here. I also wouldn't in your portfolio, I wouldn't show progress shots. I would just show final images. If you really want to show progress shots on an interview, I would suggest taking your portfolio and and a separate PDF that's a progress shot of the scene that you really want to show progress on. This bicycle looks really, really well executed. Let me see if I can zoom in here a bit. It's really, really well executed. I would maybe soften up the normal on the seat and then increase saturation a little bit and look at the roughness difference between these two. Your metals look pretty nice. The back pouch looks pretty good. Maybe needs some saturation adjustments again on the leather. Don't push it too far though. Saturation's kind of dangerous. There's a fine balance. And then the only other thing is I wouldn't be afraid to add geometry to round this out. Like, no one's gonna kill you for making that round to make it look good. By doing this, you're just showing the geometry. Same in the tire. And then your albedo for the black paint. So black paint is not black. It's like, let me see here. So like, so this is black, right? In albedo sense, that's like a really bad, like you never go that dark because nothing in reality in a PBR setup is that dark. Minus like man-made materials. You probably want to go more in the range of like no darker than 60, probably more around like 80 range. So that would be your black, which sounds crazy, but trust me, maybe you could go a little darker, but do not make it black. That's like a really, they'll ask you about that in an interview if you show them that. And I don't think you'll need to show wireframes. Again, maybe you can have that in another portfolio if they ask about it, but I don't think you'll need to show wireframes. A side view textured would be pretty cool, and maybe some nice close-ups of it showing off the materials that are running across your object. Like this close-up, I want to see that textured. Like that looks awesome. Like, and then if you're gonna get this close again, make sure to add the geometry to support the rounding. So when people look at your portfolio, sometimes they glance at it really quickly, and you did it here with it saying Substance Painter. I would totally just say small, just environment scene. Give it a name, right? Call it something like Uncharted inspired or something. So small environment props. I would just say maybe like props, and then it says small environment props, which you've said it twice. Make sure to just say like, see, you said Substance Painter, but then you have the Substance Painter logo here. I would just say props, and then below it just all the icons of the software that you use. This chair shape-wise feels very strange to me. Right now it feels like it might be a little high. You might want to check the, like, actually measure the height of this, and then maybe go on like a website like IKEA or something and see how high their chairs usually are for the seat, because it'll really help with, like, because right now this feels super tall. I expect to be able to tip over accidentally on that in real life. This looks pretty cool. It looks a bit stylized, which might be what you're going for. I really like these rings here. I might scale down the wood grain size, tiling wise, a bit. This edge damage is pretty cool. I would, like, if you have edge damage like that, make sure that this area has a different roughness value to the rest. This asset looks nice. The rounding here feels a little strange. I guess I might expect a little bit of an edge, just a small amount of edging happening there, similar to this. Materials and shaders. UE4 and Substance Designer. So Unreal Engine and Substance Designer. This is fine that you've stated it like this. Materials and shaders. You say materials and shaders again. So I would just say materials and shaders, and then just say Unreal Engine 4 and Substance Designer. And then whenever you're going between the two, you could just put a little logo like you have here to suggest when it's Substance Painter or Substance Designer and when it's Unreal. It tends to be pretty clear though. Stylized, this is good. This one I actually think is not strong enough to be in your portfolio currently. Currently it lacks the depth, and then it looks like you're not understanding how roughness works in this, which I know you do because I looked at the other images. So make sure to look over that. Stylized mud material. So in mud, make sure to have like a pretty broad range of roughness, because mud's going to have areas where water has pulled up just enough that even the mud is quite reflective. So master shader for blending two textures based on height. For example, the higher you get from the ground, the more snow there will be. Yeah, this is cool. I would like to see, let's see here, what's this one? For rain on the ground, nice. I would like to see these in practice, either next to them or close to them. I mean, you might not even need to show the network so big. Like, you could do the little sphere here, and then a little mini thumbnail of the network, and then showing an image of it in use. Same with this one. You could, because I think in, maybe not in PDFs, but maybe you can have a link down here to a video. If they click that, then it'll go online. So you can show a screenshot of rain droplets hitting the ground or going down the wall. But then if they click this link, then they can, if they're online, they can go and watch a video of it. Master shader for foliage. Your foliage in this image looks really dark. I would try and make sure that that's not the case. It might just be the lighting as well in the little viewer. Again, I would love to see like master shader for foliage, and then a bunch of examples of foliage using this master shader. Like at least 3 assets using the stuff. This stuff right here, super strong. I would actually put this at the very top of your portfolio. These are cool. They're lacking the PBR. Like I feel like these were made before you made your bicycle. So I'd like possibly not have these in here unless you go and like redo the texturing and for a substance PBR pass. This is really cool to see. I wouldn't, I guess a work in progress if like you just want to show like what you're working on currently. This is good that you have a link to the poly count section. I guess in that sense, I would take this whole piece as a separate PDF to show them what you're working on currently. That way it doesn't pull away from your portfolio by showing block out stuff in it. Experience, yeah. Yeah, this is, I mean, this is looking good. I'm gonna zoom out here, see how far I can zoom out. Okay, so your bicycle is super strong. I would put the fireplace with the Uncharted fan scene, the old abandoned room that you're Uncharted, the old abandoned room that just have that fireplace down here, because it'll just make more contextual sense. It'll give more focus to your name as well. I would put your materials and shader stuff at the very end before the summary, and put these props, redo the material work on them before putting them back in here. And then the building stuff I would actually put above the bicycle. So put your building stuff there, then the bicycle, and then props, and then your materials, and then summary. And then take your other scene and put that into a separate PDF, and make sure they know about that other PDF as well. That way you show that you have more, just in case. All right. Hopefully that was crazy enough for you. And yeah, I'll grab screens of these and then drop them in chat. All right, guys. Peace.